days ago, Bleacher Report released their top 100 NBA players of all time. And these lists are always going to be highly controversial, but we want to spend time today talking about one NBA player in particular on this list. Today we want to debate, was Dolph Schayes really the 56th best NBA player of all time? I'm joking. We're going to be talking about Kobe Bryant being ranked the 11th best basketball player in NBA history. This is a highly controversial ranking because Kobe is a player that a lot of people will rank as the best player in NBA history, including some former players. And on this list, it shows the lowest and highest that he was ranked by the voters. The highest he was ranked was 4th, and the lowest he was ranked was 18th. So someone had Kobe as the 18th best NBA player of all time, which I think is quite ridiculous, but we're going to get into it a little bit. I want to talk about Kobe Bryant and his career because I think when you listen to a lot of big media networks, they don't do justice talking about a lot of the in-depth stuff of an NBA player's career and different things that they went through. They spend a lot of time yelling at each other and just spewing nonsense that I don't think is actually beneficial to learning the game of basketball. The reason that I really fell in love with the game was I had this almanac that had every stat from the 2007 NBA season, and it broke down each player, and I used to just sit there and read and, in my mind, consider who's the best player of all time. So I'm just someone who really loves an in-depth analysis of an NBA player before you think about doing a ranking. And just to be clear, I would have Kobe a little higher than 11th, but I also don't think he's the best basketball player in NBA history, but he's certainly not the 18th best basketball player, and I wouldn't have him outside of the top 10. I want to start by reading what Bleacher Report wrote about Kobe Bryant in their article. So it says, Kobe Bryant's stats and superlatives speak for themselves. The 5 titles during his Los Angeles Lakers only career are clearly impressive, but the longevity with which he maintained stardom deserves just as much praise. He is tied with Tim Duncan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the second most All-NBA selections of all time, trailing LeBron. There's a case to be made that Kobe is actually the most influential to ever set foot on the NBA hardwood. His prime bisected with 2 different periods, the era in which mythology reigned supreme and the social media age, which broadened his exposure and brand, by extension his legend. Older heads continue to worship at the altar of his maniacal work ethic. Contemporaries still cite him as a source of stylistic inspiration. From a basketball reputation perspective, no one's impact on the game has actively spanned more generations. Kobe's top 10 stats remains one of basketball's most heated debates here in 2025. And I think that does a great job kind of summing up Kobe Bryant. His influence on the game of basketball, I'd say, is probably the greatest strength when you talk about Kobe. The way that players still love him today, your Devin Booker, your Jason Tatum, your Kyrie Irving, guys who really, almost worship Kobe Bryant and the way that he approached the game of basketball, his work ethic. Obviously, the Mamba mentality is something he's phrased. His shoe brand, his life after basketball. There's so much to talk about with Kobe here, and we're going to spend a few minutes just breaking down some of the things that I think are significant when talking about Kobe Bryant's career. Before we get into it, make sure you take a second to like and subscribe to the channel. We are back doing videos. We're going to be doing constantly 2 to 3 videos every single week, breaking down game reactions, breaking down big NBA news, previews for this upcoming season, and all sorts of things related to the NBA. So make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. But let's start with Kobe Bryant played 20 seasons in the NBA, averaged 25, 5, and 5 for his career. Obviously, he's a 5-time NBA champion, 1-time MVP, feels low kind of, 2-time finals MVP, 18-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA, 12-time All-NBA defense, and a 2-time scoring champion. You also have to keep in mind things like the fact that Kobe scored 81 points in a game, and post-basketball actually won an Oscar for his writing, if you remember. I believe it's called, was it The Life of Basketball? I could be wrong about that. But Kobe got into writing post-career. Obviously, we miss Kobe a lot when it comes to the basketball community, players at large and fans. I think finding out about Kobe's passing was certainly one of the hardest days as far as losing a celebrity. When it comes to, people who didn't even know Kobe. I think that was one of the hardest news to ever find out. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer. Kobe Bryant's career is so interesting because he started his career winning 3 titles in the first few seasons with the Los Angeles Lakers alongside Shaquille O'Neal, who obviously is one of the greatest players in NBA history, who was ranked a little higher on this list. So he's alongside Shaquille O'Neal and developing into this player that he would soon become, later in Shaq's Laker run and into his time after Shaq left. Kobe then, they obviously won the 3 titles, then they lost one in 04. They lost in 04, I believe, to the Detroit Pistons. Then you go to 05 when Shaq is no longer there. And that's when Kobe kind of gets to take over this team. From there, Kobe's stats went crazy. He averaged 28 points a game in 04-05, and then in 05-06, he averaged 35 points per game. 35, 5, and 5 again. Kobe, the thing that makes him so elite, I think, is a lot of NBA players, I don't know if a lot's the right word, but some modern NBA players that we consider great are not very good on the defensive side of the basketball, which is, in my opinion, what really separates when you're talking about your top 10 NBA players of all time. Guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tim Duncan. All those guys were really, really good on the defensive side of the basketball. Kobe Bryant being a 12-time all-defensive player, to me, really means a lot. When you're talking about looking at his historical precedents and what he kind of meant to the league. Then obviously, so Kobe had a couple years, he missed the playoffs, and then he lost in the first round 2 years in a row. And this is what, if you are a Kobe skeptic, you would kind of focus on Kobe missing the playoffs and losing the first round right in the dead prime of his career. But when you look at those teams, I mean, I don't know if anyone could have won with the rosters that Kobe had around him. Obviously, those teams were not very talented, and he led them. They made the playoffs. But then in 07-08, he gets back to the NBA Finals once they trade for Pau Gasol. They do lose in the NBA Finals to the Boston Celtics, Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen, kind of the first big 3 we're looking at. And then Kobe Bryant rattles off 2 consecutive NBA championships, which is so massively valuable when you're talking about Kobe Bryant's overall ranking and where he stands in the NBA and NBA history. Beating the Orlando Magic, which had Dwight Howard, Rashard Lewis, Hedo Turkoglu. This is a team that just took down LeBron James in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I believe they swept them in the finals. Doesn't say here. And then the next year they go back and he gets another chance to take down Boston. And I think that this series really, the fact that he was able to come back and beat Boston in 2010 after losing in 2008 is a perfect encapsulation for the human that Kobe Bryant was. He was one of the most maniacal workers, as we all know, but he took everything personally, and he came back and finally got the job done in 7 games against a good Boston Celtics team. And when you look at the totality of Kobe Bryant's career, you're looking at a player who, dominated in so many facets of the game. He could shoot from the 3 ball, unbelievable mid-range, unbelievable driver of the basketball. He won a dunk contest, and then again on the defensive end of the court. The flaws would be, didn't trust his teammates a lot of the times, which made him maybe not as much of a passer as he could have been. One of his most iconic plays, actually, though, is an assist to Shaquille O'Neal. So we saw the ability to play make at times when he had a player that he could trust. What fascinates me so much about his career is the way that he spoke about the game of basketball. When Kobe retired, he did a show for ESPN where he broke down players who were currently in the NBA, their game, and what fascinated me so much was the way that he saw angles, the way that he saw just the way players move on the court. He broke down Jason Tatum, and I thought it was one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen, because he talked about getting to 45-degree angles off of certain turns and getting off screens the right direction, the right angles, and the way he saw the game was so different than, sometimes us as fans, we can simplify it, but he's a guy who really broke it down and really had that work ethic. The other things that are really important is the way that he led when it came to the Olympic team. There's a whole documentary about the Redeem team and how that team had lost come bronze in, I believe, '04. Yeah, I think it was '04. They got the bronze medal in '04, and then they came back for the Redeem team, and they brought Kobe Bryant along, and they saw this to be the most valuable thing as far as turning this around and making sure that the U.S. brought home the gold. And in the gold medal game, he said, "I'm running straight through Pau Gasol's chest," who was his teammate, and he made a statement. Kobe Bryant ran straight through him, and we knew that the U.S. at that point was pretty much a lock to win the game because Kobe Bryant was locked in. But you're talking about just one of the greatest NBA players of all time. And I think it's hard to listen to a lot of modern analysis on him. Obviously, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but people point to efficiency, which if you really break down the era that Kobe played in, Kobe was efficient in the era he played in. It was a way less efficient era. The early 2000s basketball was just kind of nasty. It was muddy. It was low scoring. It was slow. You had teams like those Pistons teams that won the NBA Finals off their defense, but you had a lot of teams that just couldn't score a lot of points. So the game was really muddied down. So obviously, efficiency numbers are not going to equate to guys like Nikola Jokic nowadays, and even to LeBron James, guys who are super efficient in the modern NBA. But I don't think that's something that you can hold against Kobe at the end of the day. In my opinion, the part that I also want to touch on before we get out of here is Kobe's life after basketball was what made his passing so heartbreaking. We know that Kobe had some off the court, drama when he was younger in his career. We're not going to get into it. I don't think that it's worth talking about when you're talking about a player or a human who is passed at this point. But post-career, by all accounts, a great father. By all accounts, a good husband at that point. And he won an Oscar for his writing, and he had really gotten into his second career. And so that's why it was really so heartbreaking to see what happened to Kobe Bryant, aside from the way that people loved him, aside from the way that people talked about him. His impact on, just people's mindset. The Mamba mentality was something that I hear people talk about at a normal job, the way that they want to come into work and lock in and, get off of work and they want to go run and they want to go grind. His impact went beyond the basketball court, and that's what makes Kobe so great. So, in my opinion, Kobe's closer to the 6th, 7th best basketball player of all time. We really could do a breakdown. A lot of guys who rank Kobe, top 2 or 3, I think they tend to really focus on wings when it comes to ranking basketball players. At some point I might do my own kind of top 10, 15, whatever, but I heard a guy who I really respect, his name's Jason Tempf, does a great podcast. He had Kobe as the 3rd best player of all time, and I think that that's a little high. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's career, I think, is pretty indisputable when it comes to, having 6 championships, having the most MVPs of all time, being the best college player of all time, being the best high school player of all time, and just all these accolades. So I personally like to give respect to some of these old centers, but I mean, whoever ranks Kobe as the 18th best basketball player of all time was just simply wrong. And that's what it comes down to. But that was really Kobe Bryant. I wanted to spend some time remembering the great things and him overcoming those few years where, they missed the playoffs and lost in the first round. And coming back to lead his team to a title as soon as he got anyone even slightly competitive in a guy in Pau Gasol. Because a lot of people discount a lot of what Kobe did because of Shaquille O'Neal and the one MVP. But when you're talking about Kobe, I think you need to remember that he finished top 5 in MVP. I believe is the 2nd most all time. I had the number here, but my computer just crashed. But yeah, that's really what we wanted to get into about Kobe Bryant. I thought this list was a little disrespectful to have someone ranking him 18th, but I think that the way that Kobe's covered in the media is not always doing him justice and not always doing the game of basketball justice. So wanted to break that down a little bit. Again, we're going to be getting back into this, going to be doing videos constantly. Make sure that you subscribe. Thanks for watching. Cyborg out.